Good evening, everyone. My name is Camilo Ortiz. First, I'd like to thank you for coming out to tonight's special presentation. The Curse of the Bambino, The Curse of Muldoon, Canada's current Stanley Cup curse, and the 108-year World Series drought of the Chicago Cubs are just some of the few examples that relate to tonight's topic of this little-known sports curse, the New York Rangers curse of 1940. This so-called curse was a superstitious explanation of why the Rangers didn't win a Stanley Cup from 1940 to 1994. As a Rangers fan myself, after watching a documentary based on the Islanders and Rangers rivalry on YouTube, I decided to find out a little more about this 54-year championship drought of the Broadway Blue Shirts. You may not know or believe the superstitious beliefs of why some of these franchises failed, but some that you may be fans of have been in the same situation as these. According to a survey that I conducted based on this topic, most of my respondents do not know about the Rangers or their drought. First, I'll explain the origins of the curse. Then I will reveal to you how the Rangers ended it. We'll first run through some of the highlights of the history of the curse. As mentioned, the curse of 1940 lasted for 54 years, from 1940 to 1994, with their last Stanley Cup championship taking place in 1940. They lost twice in the final in 1950, the first to the Detroit Red Wings and in 1972 to the Boston Bruins. According to a Medium article by Darren Stumberger published in August 2020, one other explanation was bad luck by burning the mortgage of Madison Square Garden atop of the bowl of the trophy and then later urinating it to extinguish the flames, as explained by the SpongeBob meme. I know, gross. Every team in the New York metropolitan area had already won a major sports title during the entire Rangers drought, including the rivaling New York Islanders from Long Island. Established in 1973, the Islanders had created a Stanley Cup dynasty from 1980 to 1983 with 4 consecutive Stanley Cup wins with the help of Denis Potvin. With that result, the franchise have had more championships than the Rangers in their entire history since their establishment in 1926. Islanders fans created a derisive chant, 1940, in which more teams picked up the chant as a mockery of the Rangers' current drought. But how did the Rangers break their curse, you may ask? In 1991, the Rangers acquired Mark Messier, who captained the team to 2 best NHL overall seasons in both 1991 and 1994. In the 1993 to 94 season, they finished first with 112 points, clinching their second President's Trophy in 3 years. In the 1994 Stanley Cup playoffs, the Islanders were surprisingly swept by the Rangers, 4-0. And then the Rangers defeated the Capitals in the second round, 4-1. In the Eastern Conference Finals, however, the New Jersey Devils fans had already picked up the 1940 chant from the Islanders. But nonetheless, the Rangers defeated them in 7 games, winning in both games 6 and 7 to clinch their ticket to the Stanley Cup final. In the 1994 Stanley Cup Finals, they faced against the Vancouver Canucks, who were desperate for their first Stanley Cup win in franchise history. The Rangers led 3-1 in the series, but the Canucks trailed back in games 5 and 6, forcing a decisive game 7 in Madison Square Garden on June 14th. In game 7, New York had an early 2-0 lead with goals by Brian Leetch and Adam Graves. although it was before Trevor Linden scored in the second period for the Canucks. However, Messier made the game 3-1 with a power play goal in the same period before Linden scored a power play goal for the Canucks in the third period, making the game 3-2 with 4 minutes and 50 seconds remaining. After time ran out, the Rangers eventually won the 1994 Stanley Cup and ended their 54-year championship drought, silencing the 1940 chant altogether. And Brian Leetch was named the most valuable player in this year's edition of the finals. According to a New York Times article about the rainings of Game 7, more than 5 million people had tuned in for the game, making this one of the most watched games in Stanley Cup Finals history. Now, what have we learned here today? In the past few minutes, I explained the origins of the infamous curse and how the Rangers eventually overcame it. But now you know the reasons why they did not win the Stanley Cup from 1940 to 1994. To conclude, both the Rangers and the Islanders have 4 consecutive Stanley Cup titles each, with both teams on an endless pursuit for a 5th one to see which team is the better one at hockey and in the New York metropolitan area. Thank you for listening.